Now, I do like it when things can get scaled back to the point to where you have some sort of, maybe not rule, but like some sort of concept that can be applied practically. Like when people start having arguments and then they're like, well, this thing occurred at this point, which is why these people invaded over here. And if these other people hadn't gotten involved back in the 1980s, and they're like, well, no, 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 no. If you're talking about the 1980s, then you're totally ignoring the such and such crisis in '67, and they talk about some other area, and it just keeps moving out and out and out and out. I don't like that as much as when somebody's like, okay, listen, brass tacks, somebody is doing this.
Yeah,
It's like,
well, generalizing it to go, well, this situation, which happens lots. I hate it when people just want to use specific situations. It's like, because
yeah,
most of
like
this,
I like more like a frame to view something through, so that it's like when you approach a situation, it's like, okay, what is something that we're not willing to have, like on the issue of religion or something like that. It's like having sacred things. It's like I'd rather focus on like, how do I view sacredness,
right?
and then I can think on that and mull that over and be like, okay, well, I can sort of attach that to something else. Like there was a comedian named Tim Minchin. He's doing this bit on the Quran, and he had one sitting there, and he's like talking about it, and part of the way through this skit, he like lifts up the cover, and it turns out it was a Harry Potter book. He just had a Quran covering on it, and then I think he does it again, and it like is a Quran or something like that. But it's like he's going through these motions. He's like, what is it about sacredness? What is it about something that makes a room full of 2,000 people suck up their assholes like?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I like thinking about that stuff.
Right. Yeah. Pulling it back, like I said, I don't know. What was I thinking? Well, for me, like in order for me to actually come to a conclusion or as concluding of a conclusion as I can, I have to take a thing and then I have to parse it. I have to pull it back to the most simple application and kind of effect of it, or I figure, okay, what factors are actually at play in this situation. Get rid of the specifics and go, what's actually happening here, and then pull that back. Like then, if I'm going to have an opinion on it, then I've got to push that. I've got to compare that against whatever my kind of binary. I try to have like binary. I call them principles, but they're simpler than what that word is usually used for. And then, but I have to pull things back to that before I can actually make a decision on it.
Right.
And,
I wonder if that's a good correlation between, I mean, a good difference between like the Enneagram triads, like doing types versus thinking. Well, head types versus gut types.
I know it's kind of it seems to be a pretty, because I was talking to like Jacob, I think, or somebody was asking us like, how do we have opinions? And we were explaining how we don't actually have 100% conclusions ever.
Right.
Like, well, how do you make this? Like, well, we have these pins.
It's a series of gambling.
Yeah. And they're like, well, those are subjective. We're like, we know that, but in order to have any opinion, we had to pin down a few things. And they're very simple. And then if you ever convince us that they're wrong, we'll change out the pins or pull the pin and whatever. It's like that's how tenuous all of this is in our heads. But but it always goes back to those pins. There's just a few kind of things you've tied down and go, okay, this is what's actually important or whatever.
Yeah, I guess I was relating it more to wanting to scale things back to some sort of issue of practicality. Of like, or I guess application.
I don't know. It's not a very No, it's because it's not about practicality. It often, or at least in my experience, it often contradicts practicality because that's a, the first layer seems like, that's easiest to look at is, well, what, it's not how do I feel about that, but it's like in my personal context, does that strike me as appealing or not appealing? But that's useless to me.
Okay.
But and then I go and then the next level is usually practicality, which is, well, what's the actual effect? What's the logistics of this? Is it applicable? Is it, and that sort of thing. But even then, and that, if I don't have time, like that's a decent place to take it to.
Yeah.
And I think to me anyway, better than the feeling, the whatever that is that most people seem to get latched onto. And
Goddamn feelings.
it's just like your feelings are irrelevant.
Yeah.
But then eventually I do, if I have long enough, I always try to take it back to one of those, figure out kind of which of those principles it goes on, and a lot of times I'll change my mind. I learned that, and that was interesting. Because it's not always the obvious answer. I've gotten better at like seeing those like once I started kind of realizing that's what I was comfortable doing. Like that's the only way I get comfortable with an opinion or something. But but once I realized what I was doing, I'm faster at it than I used to be. But it tends to be a pretty long conversation sometimes because issues are really complex and you've got to pair out. You're going to find a lot of different pieces in there, and then you've got to figure out which one of them are like having more effects. So you've got to kind of rank them, and you go, okay, well, this is the amounts of all of these like basic pieces we found, and then you've got to go. Then I go down to my bottom end, and I've got all those pieces ranked down there, and then you kind of do the calculation. You go, okay, this violates too many of these principles, even while like supporting these principles. So yeah, no.
I mean, it's a fucking form of art, in a way, because it's like, I say it's an art because it's taking place in the human brain, so it's like there's a bit more volatility going on than if you were to just have stuff jotted down on paper, especially when you're working in real time, trying to sift through thoughts. But it's like, how was it? Being able to scale things back or down to their more basic components. Being able to check and verify, okay, is what being said? Does it check in properly with these things? And if it doesn't, okay, how do I communicate to the other person that, hey, there's these more basic components that are in violation? And then do we decide to shift the conversation to discussing the validity of the components?
Right. Yeah. Taking it back up is, I would definitely say, more the harder side of the things.
It's easier to destroy than to rebuild.
Yeah.
Although there's certain situations where that might be different, or it might be seemingly different. Because I would change that, because like if you're thinking about a building in physical space, it'd be easier to destroy that than to build it, or rather quicker. If you had dynamite or something like that, you could blow up a building and it would go much faster than building a building. But in the human psyche, things are a bit different. You might be trying to blow up that building, but what if that building shifted physical location consistently? And what if there were
harder to build it. It's easier to take it down because it's already there, and it's harder to build it because you've got to decide what you're going to build.
Yeah, I guess rather than building, I'd think of it more as like a root system.
It's not that it's actually hard to build. The hard part is figuring out what it is that you need to build, because that depends on the person you're talking to.
Yeah, and sometimes location.
You have to call in your FE contractor and your consultant. You're like, so, we're building this logic building. and we've got these blueprints and we've got the structure of it, but we need to make this other person like be able to see the building, like the building.
The way that I would probably use FE in those situations wouldn't be gushy. It'd probably be more like business matter of fact. To be like, listen, we're here to discuss something. We're here to learn. So, in the spirit of that, yes, if you feel like having an outburst or something like that, go right ahead. But understand that we are here to learn. We're not here to win.
Right.
You know, it's like I wouldn't want to tell somebody, oh, hey, you know the way that you react to things, yeah, that's bad. Yeah, don't do that. It's like, yeah, no, fine, do that, but don't stay in that longer than you have to because we are trying to get something done here.
There's probably some that mysterious like NI that I know I use, but I don't really understand. But it's more, to me, it's less about, because that's setting the stage. But it's, because at that point you kind of start trying to, and hopefully you've already collected information as you were having if you were having a discussion or something. But you've got to figure out what that other person's warrants and kind of points of pivot are.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out what kind of, and not everybody's got those kind of like really clear-cut core pins like I do. But you got to figure out what you're going to leverage on. You got to find the ones that you've got to fight against, and find the ones that you can go with, and it's that finding the other person's warrants and then just language style and a lot of things like that.
Yeah,
It's a fun process. It's one of my favorite things in the planet to do, but it's slow. Like
I think what trips me up is that I have this desire to synthesize or coalesce different perspectives into some sort of unity, but I have difficulty tracking pins in real time. I'll get focused on one pin and then decide to use that puzzle creation process or that seeking unity on that pin, and I'll forget the other picture that I had that was using that pin as, like it's almost like fractal in a way, but it's different from being fractal because it doesn't get smaller or larger. It's like I would consider it like trans-dimensional puzzle making. It's like picking up a puzzle piece for a puzzle and then accidentally phasing using the puzzle piece into another puzzle and not necessarily being aware that I've switched puzzles.
Right.
Which is probably way more boring in my head than I made it sound. But I thought I would give it the extra flair to make it sound more enticing.
That's interesting. Well, I was interested in the way you're using, you're talking about like unifying ideas. So do you would you say you conceive of different opinions or ideas or these things as you're having they're kind of whole things and you're trying to figure out how they can fit together? Or do you look at them as separates and pull pieces from them in order to build your own construct?
Can you repeat both of those?
Well, okay. So the way you were describing it sounded like you had as if these opinions are different, these differing versions of the same thing or whatever, and you want to bring them together into some kind of whole.
Yeah, it's more. Okay.
To the way I would think about it would be, I don't ever try to bring them together so much as I try to figure out what. I've already got some sort of whole that I built myself, and I can look at them all as they are, and I try to occasionally find bits from them that I'm like, oh, this adds to my whole. And my whole's always unified, but it's never pulling in the whole things to try to unify them relative to each other. It's only ever unifying, or not unifying, but harmonizing parts of one with my own kind of whole thought thing.
So, for me, answers only ever beget questions. So,